The morning started like any other Tuesday for most people on Earth. Coffee was brewing, children were heading to school, and workers were complaining about traffic. Nobody expected that this would be the day everything changed. At exactly 9:47 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, every screen on Earth went dark. Televisions, computers, phones, even the massive advertising displays in Times Square all showed the same thing. Empty space, and then something appearing from nowhere. Ships. Hundreds of them. They simply materialized above Earth, sleek and enormous, blocking out the sun in some places. The vessels were dark, purple with strange glowing symbols on their sides. They hung in the sky like silent predators, waiting. President Jake Morrison was in the middle of a budget meeting when his security chief burst through the door. The man's face was pale, and his hands shook as he held up his tablet. Morrison looked at the screen and felt his stomach drop. He had prepared for many things during his presidency. This was not one of them. "Get me Admiral Henderson," Morrison said calmly, though his heart was racing. "And Amy Carter. We need the defense secretary here now." Within minutes, the situation room filled with military leaders and government officials. Nobody spoke much. They all stared at the main screen, watching the alien fleet hover above their planet. Some of the ships were the size of cities. Then the broadcast began. A face appeared on every screen across Earth. It was humanoid but wrong. The skin was pale blue, the eyes were too large and completely black, and the mouth had too many teeth. The creature wore elaborate armor, covered in metals and strange decorations. "People of Earth," the alien said. Its voice was translated perfectly into every language simultaneously. "I am Commander Vexthar of the Zathreen Collective. We have come to offer you a great gift." Morrison leaned forward in his chair. His hands gripped the armrests tightly. "The galaxy is a dangerous place," Vexthar continued. "There are pirates, raiders, and hostile forces that prey upon weak civilizations. Your planet is isolated, unprotected, and vulnerable. We have watched species like yours perish because they refused help." The alien smiled, and it was not a friendly expression. "The Zathreen Collective offers protection. We will guard your world, defend your ships, and ensure your survival. All we ask in return is a small tribute. 40% of your annual resources, mining output, agricultural production, manufactured goods, a fair price for guaranteed safety." Admiral Kyle Henderson, sitting beside Morrison, made a small noise in his throat. It might have been a laugh, but he covered it with a cough. "To show you we are serious," Vexthar said, "let me share what happens to those who refuse our generous offer." The screen changed. It showed a planet, green and beautiful, much like Earth. Then ships appeared, different from the Zathreen vessels. They attacked. Explosions bloomed across the planet's surface. Cities burned. Within minutes, the entire world was lifeless. "Raiders destroyed this civilization 3 months ago," Vexthar explained. "Had they accepted our protection, they would still be alive. We could not reach them in time to help." The alien's face returned to the screen. "You have 72 hours to decide. Accept our protection and prosper, or refuse and face the same fate. Choose wisely, people of Earth." The screens went dark, then returned to normal programming. But nobody was watching news or sports anymore. The entire planet was in shock. In the situation room, silence hung heavy for a long moment. Then Defense Secretary Amy Carter spoke. "40% of everything we produce?" she said. "That's not protection. That's slavery. It's a protection racket," Admiral Henderson added. His voice was calm, almost amused. "The oldest scam in the book. Pay us, or something bad might happen to you. Probably something we'll make happen ourselves." Morrison stood and walked to the window. He could see people outside, looking at the sky, pointing at the alien ships that were now visible above Washington, D.C. "Can we fight them?" Morrison asked quietly. Henderson and Carter exchanged a look. The Admiral smiled slightly. "Mr. President," Henderson said, "I think we should have a longer conversation. There are things you need to see. Things most people don't know about." Morrison turned. "What kind of things?" "The kind of things we've been building since we first left Earth," Carter said. "We always knew this day might come. First contact with aliens who might not be friendly. We hoped for peace, but we prepared for war." Henderson pulled up a file on the main screen. "When we colonized Mars, we didn't just build farms and research stations. We built military bases. When we set up mining operations in the asteroid belt, we did more than just mine. We prepared." Morrison stared at the screen, his eyes widening as he scrolled through report after report. Hidden weapons platforms, secret warships disguised as cargo vessels, technology that had been classified beyond top secret. "How many people know about this?" Morrison asked. "Very few," Carter said. "Congress knows we have contingency plans for hostile first contact. They don't know the full extent. We kept it quiet because we didn't want to scare people, and we didn't want potential enemies to know what we had." "Well," Morrison said, sitting back down, "it looks like we have potential enemies now." For the next hour, Henderson and Carter briefed the President on humanity's true military capabilities. The weapons they had built, the ships they had hidden, the defense networks that had been in place for decades, waiting for a day like this. Morrison listened to everything, asking questions, making notes. Finally, he looked up. "So, if I understand correctly," he said slowly, "we could fight them. We could actually fight them, and possibly win." "Yes, sir," Henderson said. "We could, and they have no idea." Morrison continued. "They looked at Earth, saw our normal cities and basic space stations, and thought we were weak." Carter smiled. It was not a kind smile. "They scanned us, sir. They saw what we wanted them to see. They think we're primitive. They think we'll be terrified into accepting their offer." Morrison stood again. He walked to the window and looked up at the alien ships hanging over his city. For a moment, he thought about all of human history, the wars, the struggles, the times humanity had been pushed to the edge and fought back. Every single time. "Schedule a meeting with Commander Vexthar," Morrison said. "Tell him we want to discuss terms in person. Here, on Earth, in 72 hours. "What are you planning, sir?" Henderson asked. Morrison turned back to his military leaders. His expression was calm, but his eyes were hard. "I'm going to answer their question," he said. "We're going to show them exactly who they're menacing, and then we're going to make them wish they had never found Earth." Outside, the alien ships continued to hover. They were confident in their power, certain of Earth's submission. They had done this hundreds of times before, with hundreds of species. It always ended the same way. But they had never met humans before. Dr. Lauren Phillips had been teaching history at Columbia University for 15 years. She thought she had seen every possible reaction to historical lectures. Students sleeping, students arguing, students checking their phones. But she had never been asked to give a presentation to an alien species before. The call came from the White House at 3 in the morning. A polite but firm voice told her that she had been selected for a special assignment. A car would pick her up in 1 hour. She should bring nothing. Everything would be provided. Now she sat in a conference room deep beneath the Pentagon, surrounded by military officers and government officials. Admiral Kyle Henderson sat across from her, his hands folded on the table. "Dr. Phillips," he said, "we need you to prepare a presentation about human history. Specifically, our military history. Wars, weapons, conflicts. Everything that shows what humanity is capable of when threatened." Lauren blinked. "For the aliens?" "Yes," Henderson said. "They need to understand what kind of species they're dealing with, and you're going to show them." For the next 2 days, Lauren worked with a team of researchers and military historians. They compiled footage, documents, and data, spanning 10,000 years of human civilization. The story they told was not a gentle one. She started with ancient history. Humans with stone tools, hunting animals 10 times their size, not through strength, but through persistence and intelligence. Tribes that could track prey for days without stopping. Warriors who learned to use fire, poison, and traps. Then came the organized armies. Romans conquering half the known world. Mongols sweeping across continents. Generals who understood logistics and strategy better than anyone thought possible. Every century brought new weapons, new tactics, new ways to win. The industrial age changed everything. Suddenly, humans could kill each other on massive scales. The First World War killed millions. The Second World War killed tens of millions. And then came the weapons that could end all life on Earth in minutes. Lauren included footage of nuclear explosions. Mushroom clouds rising over test sites. The terrible beauty of atoms splitting apart, releasing more energy than anything natural. She added chemical weapons, biological warfare, every horror that humanity had invented and used on itself. We didn't just fight wars, she explained to Henderson as they reviewed the presentation. We perfected them. We studied war like it was a science. We wrote books about it, taught it in schools, made it an art form. Henderson nodded. That's exactly what they need to see. But the presentation was only part of what Lauren learned during those 2 days. The military showed her things that made her historical research look peaceful by comparison. Colonel Danny Wright gave her a tour of a facility in Nevada. It looked like a normal Air Force base from above. Underground, it was something else entirely. Massive hangars held ships that looked nothing like the space shuttles Lauren remembered from her childhood. These were sleek, armed, and ready for combat. We've been building these for 30 years, Wright explained. Every few years, we announce a new satellite launch, or a deep space probe. Half of them are really military vessels. We hide them in the asteroid belt, on the dark side of the moon, in orbits that nobody checks. He showed her the weapons systems. Railguns that could fire projectiles at a fraction of light speed. Missiles with nuclear warheads designed for space combat. Point defense systems that could track and destroy incoming threats automatically. How many ships do we have? Lauren asked. Wright smiled. More than anyone suspects. Commander Lisa Hayes showed her the orbital defense grid. It looked like a scattered collection of communications satellites and weather monitoring stations. It was actually a network of weapons platforms that surrounded Earth like a shell. Each platform has multiple weapon systems, Hayes explained. Lasers, kinetic weapons, electronic warfare capabilities. If something hostile enters our orbit, we can respond in seconds. Lauren stared at the tactical display. Hundreds of satellites, all armed, all connected. This must have cost trillions. It did, Hayes said. But we decided survival was worth the price. After we developed space travel, some smart people asked, what if the first aliens we meet aren't friendly? What if they see us as resources or threats? We needed to be ready. Captain Brandon Cole demonstrated something called the Glassmaker system. The name came from what it did to targets. The weapons used antimatter, tiny amounts contained in magnetic bottles. When released, the antimatter would annihilate with normal matter, creating explosions that could turn rock into glass. We can deploy these from orbit or from ships, Cole said. They're precise enough to hit a specific building or powerful enough to crack a small moon. We've never used them in combat, obviously. But we've tested them extensively. The tests he showed her were terrifying. Asteroids simply ceasing to exist in flashes of light. Old satellites vaporized so completely that not even debris remained. General Ryan Tucker walked her through the command structure. Earth had unified its military forces 30 years ago. After the Mars colony was established, every nation contributed ships, personnel, and resources. The command was shared, but in times of crisis, the unified Earth Defense Force answered to a single authority. We train constantly, Tucker said. Joint exercises, simulations, war games. We practice fighting enemies with superior technology, greater numbers, and unknown capabilities. We've run thousands of scenarios for hostile first contact. And, Lauren asked, how often do we win in these simulations? Tucker grinned. Often enough. We're not invincible, Dr. Phillips. But we're not helpless either. We know how to fight smart, how to use our environment, how to make enemies underestimate us. On the second day, Lauren met with a group of soldiers who specialized in close combat. These men and women wore powered armor that made them look like walking tanks. The suits enhanced their strength, protected them from almost anything, and had built-in weapons systems. Sergeant Amy Lucas demonstrated the armor's capabilities. She lifted a 2-ton block of concrete with one hand, jumped 20 feet straight up, and fired a shoulder-mounted weapon that punched through 3 feet of reinforced steel. We have 20,000 troops trained in these suits, Lucas said, and production facilities that could make thousands more if needed. Lauren watched the demonstration and felt a mix of pride and horror. Humanity had prepared for war on a scale she had never imagined. They had built weapons that could destroy planets. They had created soldiers who were almost unstoppable, and they had done it all in secret, while the rest of the world went about normal life. That evening, she sat with Admiral Henderson in his office. The presentation was ready. The footage was compiled. Everything was prepared for the meeting with the aliens. Do you think they'll back down when they see this? Lauren asked. Henderson was quiet for a moment. He looked out his window at the stars. I don't know, he admitted. They might. Or they might see it as a challenge. Some species are smart enough to recognize a fight they can't win. Others are too proud to back down, even when they should. What happens if they don't back down? Henderson turned to look at her. His expression was serious. Then we show them that the presentation wasn't a bluff. We demonstrate that humanity didn't climb to the top of Earth's food chain by being weak. We're persistence hunters. Dr. Phillips, we don't give up. We don't surrender. And we never forget a threat. Lauren thought about her history lectures. All the wars, all the conflicts, all the times humanity had faced extinction and survived. She thought about the weapons she had seen, the soldiers she had met, the preparations that had been made. They really have no idea who they're threatening, do they? She said quietly. Henderson smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. No, he said. They don't. But they're about to learn. The United Earth Council chambers had never been designed for this. The massive hall, built to hold representatives from every nation on Earth, now hosted guests from another world. Security was everywhere. Cameras broadcast the meeting to every corner of the planet. This was the moment that would define humanity's future. Commander Vex Thar entered the chamber with 6 guards flanking him. The Zathrene moved with confidence that bordered on arrogance. They looked at the human architecture, the flags, the assembled leaders, and their expressions showed clear superiority. They had done this hundreds of times before. It always ended the same way. President Jake Morrison stood at the central podium. Defense Secretary Amy Carter sat to his right. Admiral Kyle Henderson to his left. Behind them, the Joint Chiefs of Staff and world leaders watched in silence. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut. Commander Vex Thar, Morrison said, his voice calm and steady. Thank you for meeting with us. Vex Thar's translator device flickered. Of course. We are pleased you chose to discuss terms rather than make a foolish decision. 97% of species accept our first offer. You seem wiser than the 3% who initially refuse. Morrison nodded slowly. Before we discuss anything, I thought you might like to know more about Earth, about humanity. We prepared a presentation. Vexithar made a gesture that might have been a shrug. Though it will not change the terms we offered. The lights dimmed. Dr. Lauren Phillips began her presentation from a control booth. The main screen lit up with images of Earth from space, beautiful and blue. Humanity evolved on a death world, Morrison began, reading from the script Lauren had prepared. Our planet has extreme temperatures, violent weather, dangerous predators, and lethal diseases. Survival was never guaranteed. Images flashed across the screen. Hurricanes, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, animals with fangs and claws, microscopic organisms that could kill in days. We survived by being adaptable, Morrison continued. We learned to make tools, to use fire, to work together. We became the dominant species on our planet not through strength, but through intelligence and persistence. Vexthar watched with barely concealed boredom. His guards looked around the room, clearly unimpressed. Then the presentation shifted. Ancient battles, armies clashing with swords and spears, siege weapons destroying cities, the Romans, the Mongols, the empires that conquered continents. We also learned to fight, Morrison said. We became very good at it. The images accelerated. Cannons, rifles, tanks, aircraft. The world wars with their millions of dead. Chemical weapons dissolving lungs. Trenches filled with bodies. Vexthar's expression began to change. His eyes narrowed. In the 20th century, Morrison said, his voice harder now, we developed weapons that could destroy our entire civilization in hours. Nuclear weapons, biological weapons, chemical weapons. We built enough to kill everything on Earth several times over. The screen showed mushroom clouds, test footage of nuclear explosions, vaporizing islands, missiles launching from silos, submarines carrying enough firepower to end nations. One of the Zathrene guards shifted uncomfortably. And then, Morrison said, we went to space. The presentation changed again. Space stations, moon bases, Mars colonies, mining operations in the asteroid belt. But also, military installations, weapons platforms, armed vessels. Vexthar started to speak, but Morrison raised his hand. Please, let me finish. Images showed the orbital defense grid, weapons testing in deep space, the powered armor troops, the antimatter weapons. Everything humanity had built in secret. We didn't know if we were alone in the universe, Morrison said. We hoped to find friends, but we prepared to find enemies. We spent decades building defenses, creating weapons, training soldiers, getting ready for a day exactly like this one. The screen went dark. The lights came back up. Morrison looked directly at Vexthar. So when you ask us to give you 40% of our resources or face destruction, Morrison said quietly, I have to ask you something. He paused. The room was absolutely silent. Do you even know who you're menacing? Vexthar's face had gone from blue to almost white. This is propaganda. Exaggeration. You want us to believe you're dangerous. But, Admiral, Morrison interrupted, nodding to Henderson. Henderson stood and walked to another console. We've been tracking your fleet since you entered our Oort cloud 3 weeks ago, he said conversationally. Long before you entered orbit around Earth, the screen behind him lit up with tracking data. The Zathrene fleet's path, from the outer system to Earth, marked and measured at every point. We also deployed monitoring drones to each of your ships, Henderson continued. Small, stealthy, very difficult to detect. They've been sending us continuous data about your vessel capabilities, weapons systems, and crew movements. Captain Nicole Stevens stood next, pulling up another display. We have targeting solutions locked on every ship in your fleet. We can engage any or all of them at a moment's notice. Red targeting reticles appeared on the display, each one centered on a Zathrene vessel. Vexthar stood abruptly. You threaten us? You dare. We don't threaten, Morrison said, and his voice was ice cold. We inform. You came to our world with threats. You showed us footage of destroyed civilizations and told us to pay or face the same fate. So we're showing you what happens when you threaten humanity. General Chris Martinez spoke from his seat. We've fought each other for 10,000 years, Commander. We're really good at it. And unlike you, we don't prey on the weak. We've been waiting for someone to test us, someone to push us, to see what we would do. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood next to Martinez. She actually laughed, a short, sharp sound in the tense silence. And you just volunteered. Several other human officials smiled. Some chuckled quietly. The sound was somehow more frightening than any threat. Vex Thar looked around the room, seeing humans who were amused rather than afraid. His translator must have been working overtime because his expression showed clear confusion. This is a bluff, he said, but his voice lacked certainty. You cannot stand against the collective. We have thousands of ships, billions of soldiers. We control dozens of systems. Morrison walked down from the podium. He approached Vex Thar directly, standing just a few feet away. Let me tell you what's going to happen, Morrison said softly. You're going to leave our system. You're going to tell your collective that Earth is off limits. And you're never going to threaten us again. And if we refuse? Vex Thar demanded. Then we demonstrate, Morrison said. We show you that all of this isn't propaganda or exaggeration. We prove that humanity doesn't just talk about being dangerous. We show you what happens when someone tries to enslave us. Amy Carter stood. We've been preparing for this meeting our entire lives, Commander. All of us. Every human in this room grew up knowing that first contact might be hostile. We hoped it wouldn't be. All. After Sif. We hoped it wouldn't be. We really did. But you came here offering slavery and calling it protection. So here's our counteroffer, Morrison said. Leave peacefully, and we'll forget this happened. Try to enforce your demands, and you'll become a cautionary tale. A story that other species tell, about what happens when you underestimate humanity. Vex Thar looked at his guards. They looked back at him, uncertainty clear in their postures. He looked at the screens, showing his tracked ships, the targeting solutions, the weapons data. We need to consult with the collective, he said finally. You have 12 hours, Henderson said. After that, we'll assume you've chosen the hard way. And Commander, we've jammed all your communications. Nothing leaves this system without our permission. You'll make your decision here, with the information you have now. Vex Thar and his guards were escorted out of the chamber. The moment they were gone, the room erupted. Some officials cheered. Others looked worried. Henderson walked back to Morrison's side. Think he believed us? Henderson asked. Morrison looked at the tracking data still displayed on the screens. He better. Because if he doesn't, we're about to start a war with an interstellar empire. Maybe, Carter said. Or maybe we're about to show the galaxy that Earth isn't prey. We're the predators. Outside, in orbit, the Zathrene fleet hung motionless. Inside those ships, alarms were starting to sound. The humans hadn't been lying. They really had attached monitoring devices. They really did have targeting solutions. And the weapons that were slowly powering up throughout the solar system were very, very real. Commander Vex Thar sat in his command chair and realized he had made a terrible mistake. They had chosen the wrong species to threaten, and now he had 12 hours to decide if his pride was worth finding out just how dangerous humans really were. The 12 hours passed slowly. On Earth, people watched the news constantly. Everyone knew what was happening. The aliens had demanded tribute. The government had refused. Now, they were waiting to see what would come next. In the Situation Room, President Morrison and his team monitored the Zathrene fleet. The alien ships hadn't moved. No communications had been detected. They were just waiting, probably arguing among themselves about what to do. Admiral Kyle Henderson drank his fourth cup of coffee and studied the tactical displays. They're scanning us, he reported, trying to figure out if we were telling the truth. They've found about 30% of our defensive satellites. Only 30%? Defense Secretary Amy Carter asked. The others are too well hidden. Henderson said with satisfaction. And they still haven't found the fleet we've got scattered through the asteroid belt. They're looking, but they can't see ships that look like mining vessels and cargo haulers. Morrison checked his watch. 1 hour left. Any change in their posture? None, sir, replied Colonel Amanda Price from her station. They're maintaining formation. Weapons are charged, but not targeting anything. They're in a defensive stance. Then, with 40 minutes remaining, everything changed. A Zathrene destroyer broke formation. It accelerated away from the main fleet, heading toward Mars. Long-range sensors tracked its course. The target became clear quickly. They're heading for Mining Station 7, Lieutenant Megan Foster called out. The unmanned facility near Phobos. Morrison stood. Are there people there? No, sir. We evacuated it 3 days ago, just in case. But there's valuable equipment. Processing facilities, ore stockpiles, millions of dollars worth of infrastructure. Everyone watch the screens. The Zathrene ship approached the mining station. Its weapons charged. Then, it fired. The mining station exploded in a brilliant flash. Debris scattered in all directions. The destruction was thorough and quick. The Zathrene ship turned back toward the main fleet. Its message clear. Well, Morrison said quietly. They made their choice. He walked to the communications console and pressed a button. His face appeared on screens throughout the military command structure. On ships, hidden in the asteroid belt. On the orbital platforms. On the moon base and Mars colony. Every military installation in the solar system heard his next words. This is President Morrison. The Zathrene Collective has just destroyed one of our facilities. They have chosen to ignore our warning and demonstrate hostile intent. As Commander-in-Chief, I am authorizing defensive operations. Show them what humanity is capable of. Show them who they're dealing with. No, he paused, then added, and Admiral Henderson? Show them. Henderson smiled. It was not a kind expression. He opened a command channel that reached across the entire solar system. All units, this is Henderson. Execute perimeter protocol. Activate all defensive systems. I want every hidden asset visible and online in 2 minutes. Let's introduce ourselves properly. What happened next would be analyzed by military historians for generations. From the asteroid belt, ships that had looked like civilian cargo vessels suddenly transformed. Their hulls opened to reveal weapons. Their engines flared to full power. What had appeared to be 50 mining ships became 200 warships in seconds. Commander Eric Stone led the primary battle group from his position near Ceres. All ships, this is Stone, form up and prepare to engage. Target priority is the destroyer that attacked our station. Let's send a message. Around Earth, the orbital defense grid activated fully. Satellites that had seemed dormant suddenly lit up with energy signatures. Weapons, ports opened. Targeting systems came online. The planet was suddenly surrounded by a shell of armed platforms. Commander Lisa Hayes coordinated from the primary orbital station. All platforms, green and ready. We have firing solutions on every hostile vessel. Awaiting orders. On the moon, the hidden military base revealed itself. Massive doors opened in the lunar surface, and ships began launching. These weren't exploratory craft. They were purpose-built warships, armed with humanity's most advanced weapons. The Zathrene fleet immediately went to full alert. Their sensors were suddenly overwhelmed with contacts. Ships appearing from the asteroids. Weapons, platforms around Earth. Lunar vessels launching. They had been surrounded without even knowing it. Commander Vexthar watched his tactical display with growing horror. 30 minutes ago, they had been the superior force. Now they were outnumbered 3-1, and these human weapons signatures were impressive. All ships, defensive formation, he ordered. Prepare to. He never finished the command. Major Scott Henderson, commanding a long-range weapons platform beyond Jupiter, received his targeting data. The Zathrene destroyer that had attacked the mining station was flagged. Its exact position, course, and shield frequency were known. Target locked, Henderson reported calmly. Firing Glassmaker 3. The weapon was invisible. A magnetic bottle containing a few grams of antimatter, accelerated to a fraction of light speed. It crossed the distance between Jupiter and Mars in minutes. The Zathrene destroyer never saw it coming. The antimatter made contact with the ship's hull. Matter and antimatter annihilated each other in a burst of pure energy. The destroyer didn't explode. It simply ceased to exist. One moment, it was there. The next moment, there was only an expanding sphere of light and particles. The precision was terrifying. The destroyer was gone, but nothing else was damaged. Not a single piece of debris hit anything else. It was surgical destruction. Every Zathrene ship received the message simultaneously. An unknown human voice. Translated perfectly. That was a demonstration. One ship, one shot. We can do that to your entire fleet. Stand down or be destroyed. Vexthar looked at the empty space where his destroyer had been. His hands shook. How? He whispered. How is this possible? His science officer's voice was equally shaken. Commander, the weapon came from beyond Jupiter. They hit a moving target from that distance, with perfect accuracy. Their targeting systems are far more advanced than we estimated. Another transmission came through. This time it was Admiral Henderson's voice. Commander Vexthar, we've been listening to your internal communications for 3 weeks. Yes, we can do that too. We know you've been trying to call for reinforcements. We've jammed all your signals. Nothing gets out of this system. On the screens, Henderson's face appeared. He looked calm, almost bored. We also have hunter-killer drones attached to each of your ships. They've been there since the first day. We can destroy your entire fleet from the inside if we choose to. We've had you checkmate since before you even made your demands. Vexthar finally understood. The humans hadn't been bluffing. They hadn't been exaggerating. Every capability they claimed was real. And they had been planning for this scenario for decades. You let us think we were in control, Vexthar said slowly. Yes, Henderson confirmed. We wanted you to understand something. When you arrived, you thought you were the hunters. But you were wrong. From the moment you entered our system, you were the prey. We tracked you, studied you, and prepared for every possible action you might take. Morrison's voice joined the transmission. We hoped you would be peaceful. We really did. But when you came with threats instead of friendship, you activated protocols we've been refining for 30 years. Do you know what those protocols say, Commander? Vexthar didn't answer. They say that any species that threatens humanity must learn a lesson. Must understand that we are not victims. We are not weak. We are not prey. All around the solar system, human weapons remained locked on Zathrene ships. On Earth, people watched screens showing the military might their government had secretly prepared. Some were frightened. Some were proud. All were amazed. Colonel Amanda Price pulled up another display. Sir, we're also showing them something else. Images appeared on every Zathrene screen. Human soldiers in powered armor. Ground forces that could fight in any environment. Armies that numbered in the millions. Marines trained for boarding actions and ship-to-ship combat. If you somehow manage to land on Earth, Morrison said, these are the people you'll face. Each one is equipped with weapons and armor that make them individually more dangerous than most species' elite troops. And we have thousands of them. Vexthar looked at his command staff. They looked back at him with fear in their eyes. The collective had made a terrible mistake. They had chosen to threaten the wrong species. What do you want? Vexthar asked finally. We want you to leave, Morrison said simply. We want you to go back to your collective and tell them that Earth is not available for protection rackets. Tell them that humanity will defend itself. Tell them that if they want contact with us, they come as friends, or they don't come at all. Henderson leaned forward. And Commander? We're going to track your fleet all the way out of the solar system. If you change course, if you try anything, we will destroy you. This demonstration was us being gentle. You don't want to see what happens when we're not. The transmission ended. Vex Thar sat in his command chair, surrounded by ships that were completely outmatched. He had come here expecting easy prey. Instead, he had found predators who had been waiting for someone exactly like him. Navigation, he said quietly. Set course out of the system. Maximum speed. What about the collective? His first officer asked. What do we tell them? Vex Thar watched as human ships escorted his fleet toward the edge of the solar system. Watched as weapons platforms tracked every move they made. Watched as humanity showed its true face. We tell them the truth, he said finally. We tell them that we found humans. And we tell them to never, ever come back here. 3 months had passed since the Zathrene fleet limped out of the solar system. 3 months since humanity announced to the galaxy that Earth was not afraid. The changes that followed were remarkable. President Jake Morrison stood in his office, looking at reports from across known space. The news was spreading. Stories about the species that had laughed at the Zathrene collective, tales of weapons that could destroy ships from impossible distances, legends of a world that had prepared for war while hoping for peace. They're calling us the Defiant Ones, said Secretary Beth Wagner, reading from her tablet. Some species see us as heroes. Others see us as a threat. Most are just curious. Morrison nodded. The intelligence reports were fascinating. The Zathrene collective had pulled back from 7 star systems after their defeat at Earth. Apparently, their reputation for invincibility had been shattered. When one human world could defeat them, other species started asking why they were paying tribute at all. We've received 42 requests for contact, Wagner continued. 28 are from species currently under collective protection. They want to know if we can help them resist. The others are from independent worlds wanting to establish diplomatic relations. A knock came at the door. Admiral Kyle Henderson entered, followed by Intelligence Director Jason Marks. Both men looked tired, but satisfied. Mr. President, Henderson said, we have a situation developing. The collective is collapsing faster than we anticipated. Morrison gestured for them to sit. Explain. Marks pulled up a holographic display showing multiple star systems. After the Zathrene retreat from Earth, 3 species immediately stopped paying tribute. They fortified their systems and told the collective to leave. Instead of fighting, the collective withdrew. They're afraid, Henderson added. Word has spread that humans destroyed one of their ships with a single shot from the edge of the solar system. They're not sure what else we can do, so they're avoiding conflict. And the species that were paying tribute are watching, Marks continued. If the collective won't fight to maintain control, why keep paying? It's a cascade effect. The Empire is crumbling. Morrison considered this. What about Vex Thar? What happened to him? Recalled in disgrace, Mark said. Stripped of command. The collective sent a new ambassador. His name is Kraylon. He arrived at the edge of our system yesterday, requesting permission to approach Earth. Requesting permission, Morrison repeated. That's a change. He's asking to negotiate a peace treaty, Henderson said. Not a protection agreement. An actual treaty between equals. Morrison looked at Wagner. Your thoughts? We should meet with him, she said. But carefully. This could be the beginning of real diplomatic relations. Or it could be a trick. I agree, Henderson said. But I think it's genuine. The message included a formal apology for Vex Thar's threats. They acknowledged that they misjudged us. The meeting with Ambassador Kraylon happened a week later. Unlike Vex Thar, Kraylon came alone except for 2 unarmed attendants. His ship was small and carried no weapons. He approached Earth slowly, broadcasting peaceful intent continuously. When he entered the council chambers, His posture was different from his predecessor. Where Vexithar had been arrogant, Kralon was respectful. He bowed to the assembled human leaders. "President Morrison," Kralon said through his translator. "On behalf of the Zathreen Collective, I apologize for the actions of Commander Vexthar. He exceeded his authority and acted with dishonor toward your people." Morrison nodded but said nothing. He waited for Kralon to continue. "We understand now that humanity is not a species to be threatened or controlled," Kralon said. "We wish to establish peaceful relations, trade, cultural exchange, perhaps friendship, in time." "No protection agreement?" Amy Carter asked pointedly. "No," Kralon said firmly. "We recognize that Earth does not need our protection. Indeed, we have learned that you are quite capable of defending yourselves." The treaty negotiations took 2 weeks. The final agreement was simple. Trade would be allowed. Cultural exchanges would be encouraged. Neither side would interfere in the other's internal affairs. There would be no tribute, no demands, no threats. On the day the treaty was signed, Morrison made a speech that was broadcast across Earth and transmitted to every species that had requested contact. "Today marks the beginning of a new era," Morrison said. "We have shown the galaxy that humanity will not be intimidated. But we have also shown that we prefer peace to war. We want friends, not enemies. We want trade, not conquest. We want to learn from other species and share what we know." He paused, looking directly into the camera. "But let this be clear to everyone watching. If threatened, we will defend ourselves. If attacked, we will respond. If any species tries to enslave or destroy humanity, they will learn what we are truly capable of. We hope this knowledge prevents conflict rather than causes it." The speech was received well. More species reached out to Earth. Some wanted trade agreements. Some wanted defensive alliances. Some just wanted to meet the species that had stood up to the collective. Captain Tyler Nash was given command of the first joint human-alien defense fleet. 5 species had signed mutual defense agreements with Earth. When one of those species, a peaceful trading civilization called the Wren, was threatened by collective forces, Nash led the response. The fleet jumped into the Wren home system to find 3 Zathreen cruisers demanding tribute. When they saw human ships, the Zathreen immediately withdrew. No shots were fired. The presence alone was enough. "This is interesting," Nash reported to Henderson. "They're not even trying to fight. The moment they see our ships, they leave. Fear is a powerful deterrent," Henderson replied. "They don't know what we can really do, so they imagine the worst." Dr. Hannah Roberts led the first diplomatic mission to a species called the Kale. They were artists and philosophers who had been paying tribute to the collective for decades. When humans arrived offering genuine friendship with no demands, the Kale were suspicious at first. "Why help us?" their leader asked. "What do you want in return?" "Nothing," Roberts said honestly. "We help because it's right, because you're being oppressed, and we have the power to stop it, because we believe in freedom, and you deserve yours." The Kale eventually accepted Earth's help. With human military advisors, they fortified their system. When the collective came demanding payment, they found the Kale defended by human technology and human-trained forces. The collective withdrew. Within 6 months, 12 species had broken free from collective control. All of them credited humanity with giving them the courage to resist. Earth became known as a protector of the weak, a defender of freedom, a species that used its power to help rather than dominate. But not everyone was happy about humanity's rising influence. Some species saw Earth as a threat to stability. Some worried that humans would become the new collective, just with a different name. Morrison was careful to address these concerns. "We will never demand tribute," he said in a speech to the Galactic Assembly, a loose organization of independent species. "We will never force anyone to join our alliance. We offer help freely, and anyone can refuse it. Our goal is not an empire. Our goal is a galaxy where every species can determine its own future. The final scene of humanity's transformation came at the newly opened Terran Defense Academy. Built on Mars, it trained officers from Earth and allied species. The goal was to share human military knowledge with friends who needed to defend themselves. Admiral Henderson, now retired from active command, had been asked to give the graduation speech to the first class. 100 officers from 7 different species stood at attention as he walked to the podium. When the Zathrine Collective came to Earth, Henderson began. They offered us protection. They thought we were weak. They thought we would be grateful for their offer. They were wrong. He looked at the assembled officers, human and alien alike. But we didn't defeat them through strength alone. We defeated them through preparation, through unity, through the understanding that freedom is worth fighting for. Those lessons apply to all of you. He gestured to the mixed crowd of species. You come from different worlds, different cultures, different histories. But you all understand the same truth. That independence is precious. That no one should bow to tyrants. That those with power have a responsibility to protect those without it. Henderson pulled up a holographic display showing the Monument to Peaceful Intent, erected in Geneva. It listed every species that Earth had helped gain independence. There were already 15 names, with space for hundreds more. This monument represents our promise, Henderson said. We will help those who ask for help. We will defend those who cannot defend themselves. We will never demand payment or submission. We offer protection freely, with no strings attached. That's the human way. He paused, looking at each officer in turn. The Zathrine offered Earth protection, and we laughed. Not because we were cruel, but because we had already protected ourselves. Now we extend that protection to others. We share our knowledge, our technology, our friendship, and we ask nothing in return except that you use what we teach you to defend freedom, not destroy it. The graduating class saluted. Henderson saluted back. You are the future, he said. You are proof that cooperation is stronger than domination. That friendship is more valuable than tribute. That the galaxy can be better than it was. Go forward and show others what we've shown you. That strength, used in defense of freedom, is the highest calling. That power, without compassion, is tyranny, and that any species that threatens peace will find us ready to respond. The ceremony ended. Officers from 7 species left to take their positions on ships throughout Allied space. They carried with them human training, human values, and human determination. In his office, Morrison watched the graduation broadcast with satisfaction. 3 months ago, Earth had faced possible invasion. Now, they were leading a coalition of free species. They had changed from an isolated world to a galactic power. Do you think it will last? Wagner asked. This alliance we're building? Morrison considered the question. As long as we stay true to our values. As long as we help without demanding. As long as we remember that we're protectors, not conquerors. Then yes, it will last. He looked at the star map on his wall. 15 species had been freed. Dozens more were reaching out for help. The collective was in retreat. The galaxy was changing. They offered us protection, Morrison said quietly. Then, they learned who we really were. And now the whole galaxy knows. Earth stands for freedom. And we'll keep standing as long as we're needed. Outside, human ships patrolled alongside vessels from a dozen other species. The fleet that had been built in secret now flew openly, a symbol of protection rather than threat. Humanity had announced itself to the galaxy not with conquest, but with courage. The age of human isolation was over. The age of human leadership had begun. And it had all started with a simple question that Commander Vexthar should have asked before he made his threats. Do you even know who you're menacing? The galaxy knew now, and they would never forget.